Hello and welcome to another episode of The Critics. My name is Tony Gonzalez. It's finally here. We're finally talking about Avengers Infinity War. This is the MCU 10 years in the making movie. It's finally here. After seeing a glimpse of him in 2012's Avengers, Thanos is finally here as the big bad, and he is big and he is bad. Oh my goodness, this movie was great. So much about this movie I want to talk about. I'm not going to be able to hit everything, but there's a few key points I really want to touch on. But just so you know, if you have not seen this movie, do not watch this video. Lots of spoilers coming your way, and I don't want to ruin it for you. If you haven't seen it, go watch the movie, then come back and we'll talk. This movie stars everybody. Everybody you've seen from any Marvel movie coming up is probably somewhere in this movie. There is such a huge cast. Every hero, a lot of side characters all make an appearance, and of course Stan Lee, the main star of all of these movies, is in this movie, of course. Nice little cameo by him. But really what this movie focuses on that I really appreciate is that it focuses on Thanos. This is Thanos' movie. Now, I don't know what they're going to do in the second one, but this movie was all about him. They didn't worry about trying to character build on any other character because it didn't matter. They character built on him. They've had 19 other movies to character build on all these other different characters, and they've done a good job, but this movie was about Thanos, and he was great. I really liked his portrayal. Josh Brolin did an excellent job. I love the fact that they focused on him. Even though he's purely made CGI, they focused on all the little details. You could see the caption work of what they did with Josh Brolin because you could see his facial structure, how he moves, every little thing, down to the smallest detail. They covered so well with Josh Brolin, and they did such an amazing job. I really appreciate how they did him. I thought that he was a perfect blend of a mad titan, as he is also called, but I also think that they did a good job about making certain parts of him relatable. You can see how there is too much overpopulation, which was a big point of his that he was trying to make, and his more radical obvious thought process behind it made him one of the best Marvel villains we've seen. In fact, right up there with Loki, he's probably the best. Recently we've seen some really good ones. The Vulture was really good from Spider-Man Homecoming. Killmonger was great from Black Panther, but you know, he is right up there with him. First spoiler that I want to talk about that I absolutely loved is that they brought back the Red Skull. For like 7 years now, since whenever Captain America the First Avenger came out, it was always that question of, did Red Skull die or did he go somewhere? Like, we don't know. They haven't talked about it. They never brought him back. And all this time, it was worth the wait though, because the way they did it was really cool. I really liked how it was almost a paid homage to, in the comic books, Thanos is obsessed with death. Not death as in like killing people, but death as a character. It's actual a person, and he's in love with her, and he's trying to do everything to impress her. And one little things that they did as a nod to the comic is that they made the Red Skull look, the way that he had the cloak and all that, he looked like Death from the comics. And that was something I thought was really cool because it kind of paid homage that the only time we saw Red Skull was when Thanos was talking to him, and it kind of played off that. Nice little tidbit. If you didn't know, now you know. Bam, there you go. The humor in this movie was a lot more contained, even though it had a much grander cast and a lot funnier people. You might have heard me say something about Thor Ragnarok, how I didn't like how the humor was over the top and to the point where moments that were supposed to be serious were undercut by humor, and that kind of ruined that movie for me. This did the opposite. It definitely had humor in it. It's a Marvel movie. It's going to be funny at times, but it also knew when to be serious. It knew when there were certain scenes that were talked about that they wanted to be serious, and they did a really good job about that. Even Thor, who I know they're trying to make a more like humorous character, they did a better job with him. That small scene between Thor and Rocket is exactly what I wanted in Thor Ragnarok. In that brief scene when Rocket asks him, well, what about your mom? She's dead. What about your dad? He's dead. What about your brother? He's dead. What about your friends? Got stabbed in the heart. And it wasn't really taken for a joke. You kind of see the sadness in Thor, and then you see him like try to make a joke, purposely trying to change the subject to make himself feel better. That little bit, if that would have been in Thor Ragnarok, that would have made that movie better. So this movie did a really good job of showing that he's trying to put on a front. It's not because he doesn't care, but because he's trying to put on a front and focus on the task at hand. I thought that was really, really good. I also like the idea that they made the Stormbreaker. I like how they showed you going to that planet and seeing Peter Dinklage, who in an ironic way is a dwarf but also a giant. They made him really cool, and then they actually showed them making the Stormbreaker hammer and then having Teenage Groot cut off his arm and use that as the handle. I thought that was a super cool scene, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to do next with that. They never explain it but when you see Vision shaped as Paul Bettany, who is the actor who plays him, I thought that was really interesting how they did that. Is to show a less creepy side to the Scarlet Witch and Vision romance that is all around through comics, but at the same time they never explain it. So how is he able to do that, and why would he pick that look? I don't know. It's little tidbits, but I do really like that scene. I thought she was great in this movie, Scarlet Witch that is. They did a really good job of kind of building her character a little bit more. That was the one other character that they did try to build a little bit. You see her strength, you see her, especially at the end, when you saw Okoye come out and say, where was she from the beginning? Like, they really showed how impressively strong Wanda Maximoff is, and so I really like that because that is a hint to future films. She is super powerful, one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel canon, and so to be able to kind of start showing that a little bit more as the movies progress, I did appreciate that. The people that died, I didn't expect to die. Now in the beginning of this, Loki dies right off the bat. He is killed within the first 10 minutes of the movie, and I didn't see him dying that quickly. I kind of figured he, of all the characters, was going to be one of the ones to bite it. Didn't realize he was going to go that fast, but the way they did it, I don't think he's coming back. Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel, has said that the people that die in this movie are not coming back. And while we're going to talk about some other characters who may or may not be dead, I think Loki, Heimdall, and then also later on in the movie Gamora are three characters that we for sure are not going to see again. I think those three are for sure dead. But starting with Loki, him dying, that was sad because he was one of the most fan favorite characters in the whole MCU, along with being the best villain in the MCU. Briefly, let's talk about the Hulk Thanos fight real fast. That was ridiculous. I think that fight, that action sequence, was the most intense that Thanos had to face in that entire movie. Through the rest of the movie, even though at other times he seems to be almost beat, at that scene, you actually saw him put some effort. Like, he actually had to physically exert himself to win, if not at least a little bit, because of the threat that the Hulk possesses. When he has the other fights throughout the rest of the movie, he seems more like he's swatting away flies. They get a couple punches on him, but he's kind of like, he swats them away type of feel. But this one, he really laid into him, and man, that was awesome. Okay, moving back to deaths. So Gamora then died. I personally saw that coming. I didn't think that it was that surprising, but at the same time, it was still pretty sad because she was so gloatful about how Thanos didn't love anyone, and then for him to grab her and throw her over was a little intense, even though I did kind of see it coming. Now, one thing I do appreciate, again, not going with the humor side of it, is that when I watched this, I knew that was going to happen when I found out that they had to throw someone they loved down in the pit. I thought that they were going to do it kind of like the Hulk and Loki scene from the first Avengers, where Loki was talking and the Hulk just grabs him and starts throwing him. I thought Gamora was going to be in the process of some speech and he was just going to grab her by the head and throw her out, and it was almost going to be played for comic relief. And I appreciate that they didn't. I appreciate that they slowed down and they take the time to make people feel it, make you feel what was happening, because it was kind of a big scene. And I really did appreciate that. Again, they didn't play for too many jokes in this movie. They had jokes for sure. You know, Star-Lord and Thor's back and forth, that was pretty hilarious. But they didn't focus on the jokes. They didn't overpopulate this movie with jokes. This movie was one of the more serious Marvel movies, comparatively, you know. But it was one of the more serious ones because it had higher stakes. So, towards the end of this movie is what everyone is going to be talking about. Because towards the end, after the big final brawl between Thanos' army and the Avengers in Wakanda, people started disintegrating. You had Bucky, you had Black Panther, you had Groot, you had Scarlet Witch, Sam Wilson, Falcon, you had Mantis, Drax, Peter Quill, Doctor Strange, Peter Parker. All of them disappeared. And while it did definitely pull at your heartstrings, especially when you saw Groot go and Rocket right in front of him, and then you saw Tony Stark and Peter Parker, and Peter Parker freaking out because he's a 16-year-old kid, that did pull at him. That did pull at your heartstrings a little bit. But for me, I don't think that any of those characters are dead. Now, that's what I was talking about, where I think Gamora, Heimdall, and Loki, they're not coming back. But these other characters, I'm 99% sure that these characters are coming back. In fact, my theory is that the ones that actually lived through this movie, that being Iron Man and Captain America and Rhodey and Rocket and a couple others, I think those are going to be the ones that are going to, in the next movie, be reversed, and those characters are actually going to ultimately be killed, while these characters come back to life and will be the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think that it was really interesting that with those characters disintegrating, how it left everything. This movie left on a cliffhanger. That is something no Marvel movie has ever done before. It just ended. Every other Marvel movie kind of ends with the heroes winning in one way or another. This movie ended with Thanos ultimately winning. He snapped his fingers, these characters disappeared, and that was the movie. And that was awesome. The Doctor Strange saving Tony's life. So when Doctor Strange is looking to the future, he sees the 14 billion, whatever, 14 million different scenarios, and in only one of them do they actually win. And this is my personal thought too, is that he looked and he saw that in order for them to win, Tony Stark has to be alive. Now to me, that one makes the most sense, because I'm thinking that it's going to go back to the reference of Iron Man when he is able to wield the Infinity Gauntlet. And I think if we're able to see that, that'll be the game changer right there. I think that Iron Man is going to be the key to defeating Thanos, and I think it's going to be epic. Either way, I did really, really enjoy this movie. There were a couple things I wasn't the biggest fans of. Mainly just the fact that it jumped from different scene to scene, and you're all over the place, and you leave one high-octane thought process, and then you don't come back to it for 15-20 minutes. But realistically, what are you going to do when you have like 40 main stars, and you know there's a lot of storylines going across? That to me is really my only big complaint, but I understand why they did it, and overall it did encapture the entire movie really, really well. I am going to give Avengers Infinity War an A. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you guys' time and listening to me ramble on about my comic book nerdisms. Again, just let me know if there's any movie that you want me to review. Go ahead and put it in the comments. I'll make sure to watch it, give my thoughts on it. And until next time, until we figure out what we're doing next, you guys have a great one.